This is Shelley Craft coming to you live on SNNLive. We're coming to you live from the Sprott Symposium 2018 in Vancouver, BC, Canada. With me today is Geoff Eyre of Avesoro Resources. It's a publicly traded company. I'm going to give you one symbol for two exchanges. It's ASO on the TSX and on the AIM. Geoff, welcome to SNNLive.
Thanks, Shelley. Nice to meet you.
Good to have you here. So let's get started with a brief overview on the company and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, Avesoro Resources is a gold producer focused in West Africa. We have two mines, one in Liberia and one in Burkina Faso. We're producing around 240,000 ounces of gold this year.
Now, what's the history behind the company?
We're a Turkish-backed company, so we've developed very quickly over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. We've made a number of acquisitions and grown the portfolio really quickly. So we're now the 7th largest UK-listed gold producer, and our average growth rate over the last 3 years has been 55%.
What's unique about your company?
We have a very strong operating capability. A lot of our CEO and also a number of the senior people within the operations are ex-Koza Gold, which is Turkey's largest gold producer. So we have a very low-cost operating capability. We also have a mine building capability. So Serhan, the CEO, he's built 4 mines, one of them in West Africa, 3 of them in Turkey. So we have a very solid in-house mine build capability. We also came into New Liberty, which is the asset in Liberia. Basically, New Liberty was a bankrupt company. The mine build had gone completely wrong. So we came into that and turned it around from a company that was losing $88 million a year to something in the first quarter of this year. We generated $40 million of free cash flow from operations. So tremendous turnaround in a very short space of time.
What would you say is your competitive advantage?
Well, I think it's our sort of technical capability. We're a very sort of strong engineering group. We have a very significant major shareholder behind us in the form of Mehmet Nazif Gunal, a Turkish billionaire. So we have access to low-cost capital. We have access to, so for example, with the New Liberty acquisition, we needed to put some additional mining equipment into the project. We got that financed at 6.5% on the US dollar. It was basically a phone call to Mehmet Nazif Gunal, and the equipment was on the ship, so we can respond really, really quickly. So we've got a strong balance sheet behind us, strong operating capability. We're not afraid to go into to challenging jurisdictions, and we're generating really good returns for our shareholders.
What's your track record in the territory?
Well, in Liberia, we have the first commercial gold mine. We have the only commercial gold mine in Liberia. Actually, there are 2. We have another one that's on the private side of the business that we acquired a number of years before. So we're across both of the only 2 gold producing assets in Liberia. In Burkina Faso, we acquired the Youga mine from Endeavour Mining. So we turned that around by reducing the mining costs, and when it should have actually closed now, Endeavour Mining were planning to close the Youga mine because they felt that it had come to the end of its life. We've actually come in, turned it around. We're now looking at a mine life out to 2027. So it's a fantastic turnaround in that operation by lowering the cost, increasing profitability, very low cost exploration as well. We have our own sort of captive drilling company, so we do diamond drilling internally basically for $55 to $65 a meter, which is around half to a third of the price that you would typically be paying in the market. So we've come into projects, drilled out the resources and converted from resources into reserves, extending mine lives and mining at a very low cost, which makes the gold in the ground much more economic for us than it does potentially in some other companies' hands.
What's the political climate in your territories?
Well, in Liberia, there was a change in government earlier this year, so transitioned from Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, who'd been the president for 2 terms in office. It's now George Weah. So that transition of power was very smooth. There were no difficulties in the country. Obviously, as a company, we have to sort of re-establish relationships with new members of government. So that's an important thing for us. But we've already met with the new president a number of times, and that relationship is going very, very well. In Burkina, Burkina has a sort of well-established mining industry anyway, and again there we have a very good relationship with the government. I think part of our culture as a sort of Turkish majority-owned business, we recognise the importance of good government relations, and that's one of the things that we really do focus on.
What's your background?
My background, I'm a chartered engineer. I originally did an engineering apprenticeship, and I was an engineer, and then I transitioned into finance. I spent around 10 years with Ernst & Young, a number of those years in Ernst & Young Global, and the last few years that I was with Ernst & Young, I was focusing on IPO transactions in the resources sector, which is how I got into mining in the resources space. And then I moved and joined a company called Ferrexpo, Ukrainian iron ore producer. It's still the only Ukrainian mining business, I think the only Ukrainian business actually to have listed on the London Stock Exchange. So I was there as part of that IPO, and then I moved from that into Africa, focusing on gold.
Now, what's your website for more information for our investor audience?
Yeah, the website is Avesoro.com, so Avesoro.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geoff Eyre, Avesoro Resources. It's a publicly traded company on the TSX and on the AIM, and the symbol is ASO. I'm Shelley Kraft, this is SNNLive, and we're coming to you live from the Sprott Symposium 2018 in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Geoff, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Shelley.